Hi, I'm Josh Harris, Associate State Director of Advocacy and Outreach with AARP Illinois. Welcome to the 2021 Gallery Gishard Virtual Trolley Tour. AARP Illinois is proud to sponsor the Virtual Trolley Tour as a celebration of Bronzeville's vibrant community. Gallery Gishard and its partner galleries are essential to preserving the cultural heritage of Bronzeville. We'd like to take a minute to remind all Illinoisans that AARP Illinois fights every day to advocate for affordable housing, affordable health care, community safety, and community development. Just this past year, we launched our multi-year Disrupt Disparities initiative, which focuses on advocating for laws to bring about necessary change to older adults of color all across the state. Already in 2021, we're proud to report legislative wins that expand retirement access to more than 1 million more Illinois residents, expanding telehealth options, which we know were so critical during the COVID-19 pandemic, expanding property tax relief for older adult homeowners, and creating more diversity on the Illinois Broadband Advisory Council. By continuing to support communities in this way, AARP wants to ensure that residents can age in place in multi-generational communities where their history can be celebrated. To learn more about AARP, visit aarp.org/il. Enjoy the show.
Good evening. Welcome to Bronzeville and welcome to Virtual Exhibition Catalog number 18. And this is edition number 4 of our Collector Fingerprint series. And we are blessed to be in the beautiful home of one of our good friends, collector, and a person who not only collects but gives. And that's what tonight's story is about, collecting and giving back. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my partner in crime, Frances.
Hi everybody. This is such an amazing time to be here with you, Chuck and Marcel. And you know, I walk around your house and I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing. You're telling a story with your art. Tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Well, the very first thing I'd like to do is thank you for coming. You're certainly welcome here. I think that art, first of all, is a lifestyle. Let me make that first. And I think that what I'd like to convey to your audience is that everybody can be a collector. That you don't have to have a lot of money to be an art collector. You can collect and start off, and it will grow, and it'll grow upon you, and you help the community as you purchase art, and you help our culture to continue to go ahead by purchasing art and so forth. It's a great thing to be in, and I started collecting art without talking about age. In the early '60s, I started to collect art, and I started. It was very innocent. I started going to the art fairs. And I wanted to bring something home from the art fairs. I didn't want to just go and attend, so I wanted to go and purchase something. So I couldn't afford art like the kind of art that we have today, you know, paintings and sculptures and so forth, artifacts that dimensional art pieces and so forth. I wasn't into that. So I started to collect cups. And the cups that I collected were, to me, they were what I wanted. And that was something unique, something to be able to drink out of a cup of art was something that I thought was pretty hip at that time. And so the cups started at $10 and $15, and they went up until I finally got into a point where I was paying a couple of $100 for a cup, and now I have over 200 cups made from artisans and from all over the country, really. And wherever I go, if I see something like that, I buy. Of course, my wife was always on me that we were spending too much money, didn't have any place to put the things, but we did collect, and it was always big fun to me. In fact, just the other day, unfortunately, of all of the cups, and since I've been collecting, which was in the mid-'70s, I've never broken one of my cups until the other day.
Wow.
I broke a favorite. I mean, and it hurt me to my heart. I promise.
So Chuck, 60 years of collecting, starting with art cups,
Right.
and an activism that I can speak to for at least 30 years of my contemporaries, what is it about your fingerprint as a collector where you've taken special interest in me and a lot of my contemporaries and helped to change their careers?
Well, I think when I said art is a lifestyle, it is just that. And it once you become interested in art, your mind, I think, the way I look at it anyway, it goes in a different direction. You start to think of things that you want to do to help the community, to fulfill other aspects of your life that you really never thought about doing before. For an example, it was actually art that opened my mind to recovering and restoring a piece of our history. And I'm responsible in a great deal to the creation of the Bronzeville Military Academy, as
Right.
you
I do
know
remember.
about.
Yes.
Which so many other things have come from the military academy. I have to tell a little bit of the story. The fact that the mayor of the city of Chicago, we were at a baseball game one night, and the mayor asked, I just happened to be sitting next to him, and he said, what's been happening, what's going on, and so forth. So that it had to do with me telling the fact that the alderman of the ward had come in to see me and asked for help in rebuilding or doing something to the armory. He wanted to have a, what's that where you go to get flea market, a flea market. Trees had grown inside of the building.
Wow.
At 3517 Giles. Trees had grown in the center of the building because it had an atrium over the top, so the sunlight coming in, and the building had been vacant for over 30 years. So when I told him that the alderman had come in to see me, he said, tear that building down. He said, get the building torn down. He said, somebody's going to be drug up in there and raped, and we're going to get blamed for it. I said, can't do that, boss. He said, why not? I said, black people don't know the history of the building. That building is probably one of the most significant buildings in the city of Chicago so far as African Americans are concerned. And here's what happened here. This building was a home of the 178th Regimental Combat Team, home to the 8th Infantry of Illinois, of the Illinois National Guard. In 1865, African American soldiers went to Richmond, Virginia, from the state of Illinois, to fight in the Civil War. After the Civil War was over with, these same men came back to Illinois, but they didn't go back to Cairo and Springfield, which is where they originally were. They came to Chicago. Directly across the street at Giles, they used to drill in a barn because they wanted to continue to be soldiers. And this unit was the only unit in those days. The National Guard only had they didn't get money from the federal government. They got money from the community to arm the soldiers, to put uniforms on them, and the whole bit. It is the only unit in the United States that marched to war in the First World War, 1917, that marched to war under black command. Most people do not understand that. In New York, they did not have black command over the units. They had all white officers and black troops. These men who came from this neighborhood, when they went to France, they would not allow them to fight in American uniforms. They made them wear French uniforms as if they were part of the French army. They were not. But they had to follow instructions and so forth. The unit is represented at 35th and Giles by a statue of a doughboy from 1917. The last man killed in the First World War from this unit was Lieutenant Giles, which Giles Avenue is named after. So the history, the people of this neighborhood, the people from this neighborhood went around on what they called the Milk Pail Campaign. And they went around with milk pails and collected money from the residents. The residents purchased the land that the building sits on and gave it to the state of Illinois so that the state of Illinois would build the building where the troops were hired. Where the troops were founded.
Wow.
So that's the story of the unit. But we would have never gotten into that, I don't believe, had it not been also for the fact that I had thought about another thing in the creation of art. So my wife, who really gave me the idea that it should be a military academy. We talked about it, and she said, why not a military academy? And I went back and talked to the mayor, and I said, I got what we ought to do with it. And he said, what? And I told him, he said, do it. Make it happen. And that's how we made it happen. But I feel so much for that because I joined that unit when I was 15 years old. I was a fraudulent enlistment. At 15, I joined the 184th Field Artillery Battalion based out of that building. I was a sergeant at 15, and I was a master sergeant and a first sergeant at 18 years old, the youngest to be in that unit. And it was, like I say, I was a fraudulent enlistment. I shouldn't have been there until I was 17 years old. So we have that history.
Yes.
And history.
It would not be, and then later, with Andre's great help, we formed what they called Art at the Academy. And Art at the Academy was an event that we did for 6 years, and we did it every Thanksgiving when the young people were out of school in that building. We held that there, but we displayed the works of all of our artists from the community and so forth. It got to be a good situation for us, and right. It spawned I believe, the art galleries that came after that, because there were none until we had the Art at the Academy, and we had a great show in that. So these are the things that made me want to collect art and to become a collector.
And Chuck, you have such passion and such history, passion and history combined together that have taken artists to a whole nother level. You've helped so many artists. Tell me about one of the artists in particular that, of all your artists, I know you love them all and they're all great because you have amazing artwork. Tell me about one artist that you have in your collection that you think people should know about.
Well, I hate, that's a difficult question to answer because they come from so many different aspects of life. I watched Andre grow. I mean, how can I pass him by? Not just because he's sitting here, but how in the world do I pass him by when he's become one of the foremost entrepreneurs in the country, and shown what can be done with an art gallery and displaying artists and promoting Black art. That so many personal problems that because of my position in the mayor's office, so many of our artists, they come, they need help, they need to talk to somebody. Something is happening in their lives that, because of me being in the position I was in, I could help them out, and I don't have to name them to tell you. There was a lot of that going on, and these men, because they have this talent and so forth, people look upon them, like, hey, this is really somebody. I mean, you don't know that Kerry James Marshall, you could be sitting next to a Kerry James Marshall from almost any aspect of life here. And here he is, probably the highest paid Black artist in the world. But
you bring a good point, because Chicago, Bronzeville, this historic sacred ground that you talk about is full of so many diamonds in the rough, but yet at the same time, it's home of the studio of the highest selling living artists of color right now. You mentioned Kerry James Marshall, and that kind of brings me to another part of your amazing fingerprint, and that is just who you are, a giver and giving. And we were at an event at the Better Boys Family Services, formerly the Better Boys Foundation, with Marcel. And tell us about that event and how this collaboration kind of started with Kerry James Marshall and that unveiling, because that was a beautiful day.
No, it definitely was. BBF Family Services, formerly the Better Boys Foundation, has been around for over 62 years. Founded by Joseph Kelman, Jewish man from the North Lawndale community, that when he made all of his money, decided that he wanted to pour back into his community. And it started with, he saw young men on the corners, and he said, I want to give them an outlet. I want to give them an opportunity. And that opportunity was a boxing gym. And that boxing gym became one of the premier organizations on the west side of Chicago that has helped thousands of children. And that's not talking about the families as well. That's why we changed the name to BBF Family Services, because out of the thousands of kids that we've helped their families as well. And so the Kerry James Marshall unveiling exhibit was phenomenal, because it is now shining the light not only on the community of North Lawndale, but on the organization, from people all over the world who are fans and followers of Kerry James Marshall. And so we are excited to have it. It has opened the eyes of not only myself, who was not an avid art collector, but like Mr. Chuck said, you got to start somewhere. And even if it's just buying a cup for $5 or $10 to get going. But we have people coming from all over the country because they know this piece is there. So the great donation from Mr. Chuck and Kerry James Marshall has shone a light on the organization. That's continued. It's the gift that keeps on giving.
And that's an example, perfect example of who Chuck is. And it didn't start with the Better Boys Foundation or the BBF's Family Services. I mean, your history with the African Festival of the Arts, because that's actually where that print that you donated really started.
Where it came from.
And if you could tell us a little bit about that story of like how that giving moment in your journey of your life happened.
Well, we were fortunate in 2011, I believe it was the year, and Kerry James Marshall came forth. He was a good friend of Kerry James Marshall, and Kerry James Marshall said, "I want to do something for the organization," and he painted an original, and from the original, he had 100, and that's very important. 100.
Very limited.
He had 100 that he gave to the African Fest, so that the African Fest could build a treasury from that, and he signed and numbered these prints. So there was either 20, I'm kind of fuzzy on my dates, that was either 29 or 2011 when those were produced. And then he after a while we were selling the prints at the African Fest, which is, during the summer months.
For how much, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, we the very first ones were sold for $600, $700. They were sold for. But now this was just to general people. There was a organization in California that wanted 10 pieces, I believe it was. So anyway, I went to the board and I said, if we're short of money, why don't we sell the Kerry James Marshall pieces? Just so happens that a friend of mine wanted to buy the pieces and did for $300,000. We sold the original and the 100 pieces for $300,000. Now when you say that, you think of something reverent. Really, I mean, $300,000 is a lot of money.
That is a lot. And you're thinking for the original and 100 prints. So that really was...
But let me tell you, the day that I picked up the pieces to deliver them, the original piece, not the prints, because we had to collect the prints from places where we had given them out as a place that if somebody wanted to try to sell some, they would, on consignment, we would let them have 4 or 5. So we had to collect all of these pieces to bring them back together. But the original was in a bike closet. Was in a bike closet in the Park District when when I went and got the Now, of course, there were people, said, well, we shouldn't have sold the piece.
Original.
I would probably agree with you. But
That was the
now
deal.
it goes to auction. The pieces go to auction in New York. Sotheby's held an auction in New York. P. Diddy, is that the rapper's
right.
name?
You should tell the story.
P.
Right?
Diddy purchased a print at auction for $26,500. $26,500 for a print. That, of course, set the world on fire. The guy called me. I was in Atlanta.
Wait, Chuck. I think that was $21.1 million.
No.
Wasn't it?
That was
It's a different-
that was another.
That was
another-
one of these prints that we're
The
talking
one
about.
that was one of the prints
Right.
that we gave to the Better Boys Foundation. Was one of those prints that sold for $26,500. They pulled it off the press.
Oh, wow.
Right.
At the same time, they were pulling the rest of them. I mean,
Right.
I just want to make it clear that was what it was. No, the piece you're talking about was a piece, and I don't know whether that was P. Diddy or it was some
I think
It was
it
P.
was
Diddy.
P. Diddy too, and
Yeah.
it was the
Okay.
piece from McCormick
Bought-
Place.
one for 21.5 million. And I really think that figure is wrong. If I'm not mistaken, that one was like 25 million something, 25,600,000 or something like that. But anyway, it sold for that much, and it made him the top African American producing artist
right.
in the world.
And I might just say, that's why it's important to collect art now when you have artists that you can at your reach, because you never know where they may
We
go.
actually stood next to this man at the Better Boys Foundation. We actually were fortunate enough to be able to stand next to him and talk to him.
Yes.
I mean, Picasso, when you think of it, this man is as good as Picasso was. Now,
Better.
Picasso could sign a napkin, and today it's worth $1 million. A napkin that you had for luck. I don't know whether you knew about the incident with the piece on the West Side.
Yes.
That
They were going to take that down to auction.
That he was gonna-
stopped it.
Yeah, the public art piece.
Yeah,
Right.
he
yes.
Rahm Emanuel wanted to sell it on behalf of the city to fund programs, and Kerry James Marshall says, "No way! If you take and sell that, I'm not gonna. I won't give you another piece. I won't do another thing." And I mean, he did all that work that he did over there for the Better Boys Foundation.
Right.
Was
That was
absolutely
amazing.
phenomenal.
Amazing work. Amazing
Amazing.
work. Tell me, the piece that you have, what's the title? And those are hand pull prints, correct?
Yeah, it's the culture. Keeping the culture.
Keeping the culture.
Keeping the culture.
Chuck, I know you've talked about a Blotty Glover, Bruce Jefferson. I mean, some of the amazing artists that are in your collection. And how many pieces do you have? I think you said over 300?
Over 300.
Please tell us a little bit about some of these artists.
Well, my wife started me. She was the one who wanted to go to the art fairs to look and to talk to the artists and so forth, She could draw a little bit herself, but she didn't, she never tried to do it. But she started, and then once I picked up on, I started. The lady who did that painting, that Japanese painting behind you there, the camera. That's the only piece of art in this house that was originally not an African American piece. Everything in the house is an African American piece, or an African piece. This lady was the reason she's here, because she gave me the answer to to buying art. She was at the Old Town Art Fair years ago on Rush Street, when it was on Rush Street. And so I would go by every summer that she was there. And I went by this particular summer. So she said, when are you going to buy some of my work? I said, the truth is I can't afford your work. You know, big pieces, and her subjects were always Japanese and what women were doing and men. And I loved her work. It's porcelain on enamel.
Oh, nice.
That piece. And so she says, well, how do you buy art? She says, what do you do? I said, well, I said, I have to buy what I can afford. I said, and I can't afford your work. I mean, she's $7,000-8,000 for every piece that she's got. She said, that's not the way you buy art. She says, the way you buy art is, she says, you find what you like and you give me $1,000, maybe $500 if that's what you got. She says, and from time to time you send me whatever you can afford. She says, and sooner or later you own it. She says, and
yes.
and she
Payment
says,
plan.
that's the way you buy art. She says, most people can't afford to buy it all at one time. A really nice piece of art. And you want to buy something that maybe, I've never bought anything, the truth is, I really never bought anything based on what its value was, really.
You buy what you like?
Basically everything I own it because I like it.
Yes.
That's great.
It was something that, and I think most people tell you I have a good eye.
Yes, you do.
I have a
Great
good
eye.
eye for what I like.
But Chuck, there's one piece I want to just ask you about. It's a piece with a man sitting with his legs folded and no arms. And it looks like it's African. And, it's like one of your sculpture pieces.
Oh, it's a sculpture like that?
Yes. What does that mean?
What do you mean? That
No
Is there
arms.
meaning to it? Is there meaning to that piece?
piece there?
Yes.
No, that's a Benin. That's a piece of Benin. And those arms like that, they're actually places to put ivory. Both the head, both the back of the head, and the two thumbs out there. It's made that way so you can put ivory in.
So then they'll have
Display
ivory.
ivory.
Oh my goodness.
In that, yeah.
Wow.
That's interesting.
This has
Yeah.
been
Right.
amazing, Chuck. And this is a rare
Let me tell you
opportunity.
quickly about let me give you a story quickly.
Yes.
I was down at Archie Listenby's place one time. And this is a true story. I was down at Archie Listenby's, and you ought to really think about this. And he was making room for things on his shelves and so forth, So I saw this piece of art. It was a Dan mask from Nigeria. And so I said to him, Archie, this is really a nice piece, man. He said, Chuck, forget about it. He said, you can't afford it. He says, I got to get $30,000 for that piece. I said, $30,000 for a mask? He said, I'm only $30,000. He said, I got to get $30,000 for that piece. He says, and if I were white, Chuck, he said, I'd get $230,000. I said, come on, Archie, you got to be joking. So I'm working for the Still of Somerset now. So I'm traveling all over the country, and I'd go in. I'm on my way to San Francisco. This is like a Friday night. I'm on my way to San Francisco. I'm gonna work San Francisco and LA the next 2 weeks. So I always try to get to especially San Francisco, great food. So I'd go to San Francisco as much as I could and as quick as I could get there. So anyway, I'm there. I think it was a Sunday afternoon that I got to San Francisco so that I could work Monday. So I read on the bulletin board that there's a tribal art show at the Hyde Union Square in San Francisco. That there's a tribal art show in the lower level. So I go upstairs and I change, put on something nice to wear. I go down to the art show. The very first booth that I walk up to is Sotheby's. There's a Dan mask sitting on the thing. This is I promise you, my right hand to God strike me dead. I asked the white guy, I said, I know now it's a Dan mask because Archie has hipped me to what it is, see, so I know what to call it. So I said, so how much for the Dan mask? This man, without batting an eye, said $230,000.
Oh, no, right.
He said, I mean, he didn't go.
even swallow.
He didn't swallow. He didn't say nothing at all. But nigga, this is too much for you.
And I bet you he got it too.
Huh?
Yeah, I bet you he got that price somewhere. Somebody paid $230,000 for it.
$230,000. Yeah. And the truth is, this can happen when people understand if they think that it's the only piece out there, it's what you have.
Rare.
Archie is the kind of guy who has that kind of story. He's that, but he's not in the swing of things, you know. There's a piece here that if you know a basketball player or a football player, there's a bronze. It's up there. See behind the.
Oh yes.
Stephen Beck.
That's the Totsi.
Sidney Beck.
Sidney Beck.
Sidney Beck, yeah.
Sidney
That's by
Beck.
Sidney Beck.
South Africa.
That's right.
I wouldn't ask for less than $1 million.
Mm-hmm. And
Now
so
I have a Sidney Beck bronze.
we have a Sidney Beck.
We have a Sidney Beck bronze.
Oh, baby, I love you. I love you.
Francis said no, we.
Which one do you have?
The Paperboy.
I got a penny whistler. I got a penny whistler, a big one. I have one standing way up.
Yes.
Yeah.
How much are those?
Huh?
Would you estimate the
value?
The value of that piece, under certain conditions, that piece would go for better than $100,000.
Beautiful.
But you got to know what you're doing. This piece was a piece that was brought in with 5 pieces like it. That piece there is signed. What makes that piece valuable is it is signed by Sidney Beck, and it's only 3, and this one is 1 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
One or 3 in the world. I can't remember which number.
Nice.
Yeah, I love the pedestal too. I love
Ours
how
is
you have it
signed.
displayed.
Right, ours is signed.
Ours is signed.
Well,
yes,
well, listen, that's the other part of it. When you have to know how to present
yes.
a piece of art. You know,
Definitely.
you talk about people doing things. Sam Akenya, for an example, great guy in making a presentation,
Exactly.
and can get up and talk about it and make you just make butter melt in your mouth.
That's true. Inspiration.
Yes.
And
got
that's,
it.
you
That's
know,
right.
just like
Yeah.
you have helped so many artists watch these great dealers, Samuel Kenya, Nicole, you know, so many great dealers
Look
that
at-
have laid the,
Yes.
Look at
the
the man,
footwork for
like
us.
you mentioned, Bloody Glover. Now, Bloody Glover has gone from a small restaurant-looking place, looked like it had been a restaurant at some point, to a four-story gallery in Ghana.
In Ghana.
and has the artist Alliance of artists. If you're a legitimate artist in Ghana, you got to go through
Bloody Glover.
Okay. We have
I
to
love
visit.
it.
We have to
Yes.
visit in Ghana when we go to Ghana. Well,
Yes.
Chuck, I can't say how blessed we are as gallerists to be able to have a one-on-one conversation with a legend. And when I
Yes,
say
he
a
is.
legend in our community of influencing collectors, helping artists, a true art activist, and it's just been a pleasure to know you and call you family.
Thank you.
Yes,
Well, you
yes,
at
yes.
home.
Thank
You
you,
know
brother.
that.
Get my hug and
And
it's been amazing.
Marcel,
Thank you, Marcel.
Thank you for
Pleasure working
having
with
me.
you.
I'm,
Marcel, nice
I'm,
meeting
Yes.
I'm ready to jump over walls after that.
That's right.
Yeah,
Until
well,
next time, see art, love art, buy art, live with original art. Click on the link for the virtual exhibition catalog that you're interested in. Then once it opens up, you are inside of the Gallery Guichard exhibition of your choice. Now you can move around freely by touching the circles, and you can get information about each painting, title, medium, artist, and contact information for Gallery Guichard.